Welcome everyone to the Wake Up Call channel. Riots have broken out in the UK. Of course, these are manufactured riots that the governments themselves are starting. And Elon Musk tweeted out that civil war is inevitable. And of course, many people have said that civil war is inevitable, but they're making a very big deal about the fact that Elon Musk tweeted this out because they're using this operation over in the UK to bring about more persecution and online criminality for people out there that tweet things. Now, the first thing we need to look at with the riots going on over there is understand this. All of these riots that occur, whether it's Black Lives Matters or the January 6th riots, these are all manufactured. And by manufactured, I mean the government themselves starts these things. Some people might organically join in because that's what that motto, monkey see, monkey do, is all about. But the government themselves are starting these things. They're the ones who have started this civil war, quote unquote. In fact, they're the ones who are gaslighting people into a civil war. It's been movies that have come out about civil wars over the last year or so, from every article out there talking about national divorces to politicians themselves saying that we can no longer live among people who vote the opposite of us. I mean, this is utter insanity, but it's all manufactured. And Elon Musk saying that civil war is inevitable, of course, is just more gaslighting. And really what we need to look at when it comes to civil war being inevitable is them using Israel and Palestine and anti-Muslim and anti-Jew terminology to start dividing us even more. Because remember, the Third World War, that whole thing from Albert Pike that I've read to you many times, right, about this Third World War that has to occur between political Zionists and the Islamic world, they go on to talk about, Pike talks about in that openly, that other nations once more divided on this issue will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. So they're forcing Republicans and Democrats to align themselves with one side versus the other. You're no longer allowed to be neutral. That's something that we've seen with the Donald Trump psyop that's been going on, right? People are very angry at anybody out there that is not siding with Trump. They're angrier at people like me and you for being neutral and saying that the whole thing is rigged. That bothers them more so than saying that you're a Democrat. That's how bad this has gotten. So this is now starting to spread where British police are bracing for anti-Muslim riots and counter protests out there. Now, Elon Musk is the perfect one to use. Elon Musk, whose child is transgender, who has always been a liberal, has turned and taken a hard right turn into conservative politics, right? He's funding Donald Trump's campaign. This is all very convenient at the same time that we're experiencing out in the open his second trial of the Neuralink, which of course is crucial to all of this because they need people to trust in some of these billionaires. They can't have everybody aligned as a Democrat, or the conservatives aren't going to go along with the technology that they want to push, which is why, again, you don't hear the alt-right media warn about the technology, the dangers of technology, and how they need to get away from technology. The alt-right media, of course, is encouraging it. They're promoting Bitcoin. They're promoting cryptocurrency and blockchain, and that's all done by design, and so will the Neuralink. That'll be done by design as well. So what this is about is tracking online criminality. Okay, so they say although social media companies have their own internal policies barring hate speech and incitement of violence from their platforms, they have long struggled to implement them. Quote, the problem has always been enforcement. This according to this CNN article that is out there. And don't forget, just a few days ago, I received a strike on a video that was about a red substance. That's all it was about. A red substance that a movie was promoting that people in Hollywood like to take. They like to drink it. They like to inject themselves with it. And I received a strike, and underneath that strike, it said content that promotes, glorifies, or incites acts of violence through harmful conspiracy theories, which have been linked to direct threats of violent acts. So in other words, I could do a video about a Demi Moore movie, and if somebody out there commits a crime and they say, well, I was incited because I saw some YouTuber's video online, and even though he didn't call for violence, it made me think that these people were doing something, so I did something, and then that person who made the video should now be criminalized and put in jail. That's what this is about, and it's also about getting a digital ID in place so you could be held responsible for this stuff. So here's just a quick clip of what's going on with Elon Musk over in the UK and how, well, they're more concerned about what Elon Musk tweeted than they are actually about the riots that they started. Take a look.
The British government has called on Elon Musk to act responsibly after the tech billionaire used his social media platform X to unleash a series of posts that officials say risk inflaming the violent unrest gripping the country. Musk had posted a comment saying that, quote, civil war is inevitable in the UK, and later doubled down, highlighting complaints that the British criminal justice system treats Muslims more leniently than far-right activists. Britain has been shaken by violence for more than a week as police clash with crowds spouting anti-immigrant and Islamophobic slogans. The unrest began after right-wing activists used social media to spread misinformation about a knife attack that killed 3 girls. Later on Tuesday, Musk continued to post on the issue.
So that's pretty incredible. And then you see Elon Musk gaslighting his audience out there, right? Kevin Sorbo, again, one of these low-level actors in Hollywood that they're using to be a conservative, right? He said, this is what's happening in the UK. Somebody posted a racist comment on Facebook, 15 weeks in jail. Somebody else sold anti-immigration stickers, 24 months in prison. Somebody else did a disgusting act with a 12-year-old, 180 community hours, no prison time, right? So the other thing that we've seen with these riots is that they're actually using alt-right media puppets. And one of them is Tommy Robinson, who I have covered in the past. Tommy Robinson is a 100% bought and paid for operative for the industrial complex known as Israel. He is a Zionist. He is a Zionist, self-admitted one. So, of course, he was one of the figureheads of this anti-Muslim riot. Now, for those of you who are trying to figure out what the anti-riot is even about, supposedly 3 people were stabbed at a Taylor Swift-themed event. So 3 children were stabbed at this Taylor Swift-themed event in England. And then, supposedly, the rumors online, like we've heard in America, they're doing the same thing with the border in America. It's the same script. In America, whenever there's an event that occurs revolving around a young woman being stabbed or attacked, immediately they're getting everybody out there to think that it's an illegal immigrant and that these news stories are actually real, and then everybody runs with the story and gets very, very upset. Well, this story is that it was a Muslim, it was an illegal, that he wasn't really rightfully there, so of course these alt-right people run and they jump to they go to the riots and they incite violence and they incite riots. And of course, it's all in the name of misinformation because, of course, conveniently, the kid who did it supposedly was not an illegal immigrant. He was supposedly born and raised in the UK. So oopsie daisy. So now everybody's upset because the alt-righters once again are feeding and fueling misinformation. Now, the other thing to know, which many people haven't discussed, but I have to discuss this, because I've talked about it in the past, because this to people sounds like a crazy notion. And when I mention it to people who are anti-gun, they don't seem to understand where this is going. And they think that it's a crazy conspiracy, but it's not. It's not, because the anti-knives movement is getting bigger and bigger. We know in Australia they're pushing this. They're pushing it in the UK, okay? And if you see, there's an underlying theme here. Idris Elba has been chosen to be one of the faces in the UK to get knives banned. It starts with certain knives. They convince everybody out there that certain knives are very dangerous when, couldn't you pretty much say that any type of knife is dangerous? I mean, you can fashion a knife. They want all of this stuff banned. So the government's the only ones who have knives, the only ones who have guns. You wouldn't even be able to butter your bread. Good luck making toast for breakfast. I mean, they literally want to ban this stuff, and people think it's a conspiracy theory, right? So Idris Elba is one of the guys out there in the UK who is constantly talking about knife bans, how we need to ban certain knives. And it's that same thing with guns, right? It starts with certain guns, then it moves on to more guns, and then it moves on to all guns, while the government's allowed to own them, while all these politicians walk around with armed guards around them, right? And of course, Idris Elba has done every single all-seeing eye symbolism in the book over his eye, the 666 sign. He was recently awarded at the World Economic Forum. He received an award, okay? So it tells you that he was hand-selected. This was the job that they were giving to him, and that job is to help reduce knife crimes and ban certain knives. He even met with King Charles recently and put out a post about we're one step towards the fight against knife crime. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The new government's officially committing to bringing in the ban on lethal knives, including zombie knives, warrior knives, and ninja swords. So people out there hear this and they're like, oh, well, those things do sound dangerous. People shouldn't have these certain things. Oh, okay. And then it just continues to spread to a butter knife. And eventually, once you're desensitized enough, if you understand how mind control works, where right now you'll say that's crazy, they're not going to ban butter knives, but in 10 years they'll ban butter knives. You'll be like, yeah, well, butter knives, there's been a couple murders revolving around butter knives, so now we need to get rid of butter knives. Meanwhile, the government themselves, the media themselves are the ones making people unhinged. The majority of these events that are occurring, from shootings to knife stabbings, are all staged events that the government's carrying out. I talked about this many times. Everybody out there should be aware of it. Right? The government stages these events. And even in Bill Cooper's book, I put the quote in there, going back in the early 90s. This is pre-Columbine. And his book came out in 1991, Behold the Pale Horse. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion, the CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. This has been going on since even before the 90s, okay? This book came out in 91. This has been in place since well before then. And now we're looking 30 years later at what's happened. How many events have happened? How many events with no trial have occurred? The whole stage scenario with Alex Jones coming out. And of course, not defending the fact that we should question the news, allowing the whole thing that he did where he laid down to the hook at Sandy was all deliberately done. It's to set precedent for all the things that you just saw in this video about criminality and online criminality. And people who post things online are going to be prosecuted worse than actual real criminals. So your opinion is a bigger threat to them than, of course, somebody going out there and harming a 12-year-old. Why? Because your opinion, if you're awake and you know what's going on, will expose their control system. It'll expose the carbon footprint. It'll expose all of the nonsense that they're doing, including all of these psyops that they're creating themselves. And what people need to realize is that this is not just a Democrat thing. This isn't just the Democrats doing it. The conservatives are bought and paid for. And because the civilians who see all this nonsense going on and are outraged by it are putting their support in people like Trump and all these conservative politicians who are Jesuits, who are Zionists, who are all bought and paid for, it's preventing a real revolution from occurring. That's what they want. They wouldn't be going forward with this if they didn't control both sides. They control both sides. But people out there refuse to believe it. They think that these conservative politicians are looking at all this stuff as crazy when they're the ones who are helping in the gaslighting of you. So when we hear talk of civil war, when we hear talk about how civil war is inevitable, of course it's inevitable. It's inevitable because it's part of the blueprint. It's part of their scripted plan to create a civil war. And it's not going to be a civil war that you've seen in movies, depicted in movies. People aren't going to be rolling down the streets with cannons or machine guns. This is going to be a civil war where they turn countries into Ireland. They are going to divide people by state based on political beliefs. And my biggest fear with this, and I've said it a million times, and conservatives continue to say, well, I hope they do that because I don't want to live among these lunatics anymore. I can't stand living among them, even though the propaganda machine and the media has turned these people unhinged on both sides because the MAGA side is just as unhinged as the Democrat side. They go, I don't want to live among them. Do you want to be a sitting duck? Do you want to be a sitting duck for weaponized weather? Do you want to be a sitting duck for directed energy weapons? Because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do that, and then they could say, well, all the conservatives went to these states, they followed Trump, and now Trump is in World War III, and all these people are now going into war. They want you to think that this division is going to lead to some type of civil war in the streets, and it's not. It's going to lead to division. People are too weak. People are too conditioned to still be reliant on the government. And that's what you're seeing because the conservatives are still too dependent on Big Brother without realizing it, that they want Big Brother still. Instead of saying, hey, these people are messing with their lives. Now they're forcing people into prison over free speech. We're actually talking about criminalizing people based on things they tweet online. Of course, they're igniting this with Elon Musk. This is all part of the psyop. It's very easy to see why he bought X, what he's doing, how he's flipped conveniently. He's flipped into a conservative, how he's openly funding Donald Trump's campaign to gaslight the Democrats. This is all deliberately done. And this is to bring about more censorship online, but also the digital ID, which, again, the digital ID will usher in the end of all people like me and you online. Okay? The digital ID will make it so that, hypothetically, I do a video, everything's linked to me personally, right? And then they could create psyops and false flags. They could Waco us, for all we know. They have many things planned for people like us. They won't just remove us, they'll criminalize us. And that goes for you guys too. It goes for your comments. Have you noticed the censorship police with posting comments now on YouTube? I mean, I barely, comment to anybody else other than saying thank you and writing a compliment. Once in a while, I might say something like, get a grip, or you're unhinged to somebody who's like writing a lunatic-like comment, who's like obsessive and out of control. I got a 24-hour ban from commenting. Now, I see all of you constantly saying, hey, I was banned for a day, I was banned for 2. Well, now they're getting you conditioned for it. Because people like me, we've been feeling censorship for years and years and years, right? The people commenting haven't felt so much oppression online until now, right? I mean, maybe Facebook, you got your posts taken down, but now you're seeing it on YouTube where they're automatically just suspending you. You might write the most casual comment, right? They don't even know how to take the comment. They're just suspending you. They're conditioning you into this. That has to do with the digital ID and criminalizing online commenting, right? All in the name of, people like Elon Musk are starting civil wars and riots are starting because people are posting things online. And these people actually believe that this is happening. There's people out there that are like, yeah, that riot started because somebody tweeted something, because somebody had an opinion on something that didn't line up with the government's. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's unbelievable that they actually think that somebody would go and start a riot because somebody tweeted something versus the government themselves actually being the ones who start all of these riots and all of these events. It's amazing for the people out there who are begging for peace and love and unity. All that stuff would likely be out there and going on right now if it wasn't for these wicked people in government. They're the ones who have caused all of this stuff, all of it. I'm not saying that crimes don't occur. I'm not saying that there aren't bad seeds and bad people. Of course, we all know that. But every single major event that has occurred over the last 20 years that we all know about, from these events at schools, at grocery stores, to these riots, to the Black Lives Matter, these have all been orchestrated by your own government. They organize these, they orchestrate it, and then they want you to see it on TV and go join. Because then it gives even more credence to them, or they can go, hey, these are real civilians who were there, because we know real people showed up on the 6th day of January, but the government's the one who orchestrated the event and had black ops in place. We know that the government orchestrates all the BLM stuff, and they tell these people, hey, no one's going to get arrested, just go and do this, go and do that, we'll pay you to go do it. And then they know people are going to see it and join in because they're getting gaslit so bad that they're going to monkey see, monkey do, and go join in all these protests that the government's staging themselves. So this is nothing more than a government operation. And don't forget that other theme that I mentioned in here. Not just the alt-right puppets like Tommy Robinson, but the theme of knife bans. Because it's next. The countries that have already put all these gun bans in, they're going for knives next. Okay? It's 100% true. As crazy as I know it sounds crazy. Okay? I get it. But the longer time goes by where you hear these stories and you hear about, they're banning zombie knives and machetes. That's how it all starts. And then it just goes, people go, why don't we just ban them in general? Why don't we just use plastic knives? Why don't we just butter stuff with sticks? And they'll just go along with it, because when you desensitize people over time, that's their best weapon that they have. At first, it sounds shocking. So people go, they can't ban knives. But in 5 years, they'll be like, well, maybe they should ban some knives. In 10 years, they'll go, why don't we just ban all knives? We could butter things with other stuff. We don't need knives to cut bread. We could use this or that, right? Then we don't need scissors. We don't need anything pointy. And you can't fasten anything yourself. You certainly can't be a bladesmith or, anything along the lines of any type of craftsman, really, in the future, because then you might actually have a trade. And the only craftsman you'll be allowed to be is actually a master of the craft of Freemasonry, because that's the only thing that they'll accept you being a master of that craft, or witchcraft, really. So this is what's going on in the world, folks. Don't fall for their psyops. They get more pathetic by the day, but we know what's coming. And people out there, if you come out of the left, right, if people out there stop getting gaslit into this stuff and this division, you've got to realize that that's what they're doing. They're doing it by design. And even when you look at the blueprint for World War III, can't you see that that's where we're headed? The blueprint of Democrats are automatically aligned with Palestine. Conservatives are automatically aligned with Israel. Strategically done, of course, so that Christians, who are mainly conservatives, right, get in bed with the synagogue of Satan because they don't have an understanding of who modern day Israel is. They don't know anything about the Balfour Declaration. They don't know anything about the Rothschilds' control. They just hear the word, snap their fingers. They're automatically sucked in because their 501c3 churches don't teach them anything other than the word. They don't teach them the history of the land, how it was hijacked, none of it. None of it. So they'll automatically be in, and they'll literally be in bed with the devil himself. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always, and your families.